Ever thought about why the world loves an underdog story? There's something profoundly human about rooting for the little guy, isn't there? That scrappy individual who doesn't quite fit the mold, the one who's overlooked, underestimated, written off before they've even begun. They're the ones who, despite all odds, rise up and surprise us all. Picture this, a scrawny kid from the wrong side of the tracks up against the school's star athlete. Sounds like a classic movie setup, right? But that's because deep down we all love to see the underdogs have their day. Or consider the realm of sports. It's always the same story. The team that no one gave a second glance, the one that everyone predicted would be crushed in the very first round, somehow ends up clinching the championship. It's like they've pulled off a magic trick and the crowd goes wild. And let's not forget history. How many times have the odds been stacked against a nation, a group or an individual, only for them to turn the tables and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat? It's almost as if being the underdog gives them some sort of superpower. But here's the funny part. We tend to overlook underdogs until they've pulled off their miraculous feat, and then suddenly they're all we can talk about. We love their stories, their grit, their determination. But what about before their big moment? Why don't we value them then? Maybe it's because we're all a little bit like that overlooked team, that underestimated nation, that scrawny kid. In some way or another, we've all felt like the underdog. We've all been underestimated, overlooked, written off, and yet here we are, still standing, still fighting, still dreaming. So you're an underdog. Now what? Being an underdog isn't about losing. It's about rising when everyone expects you to fall. Let's talk about challenges. Oh, you know, those pesky little things that crop up just when you think you're about to have a smooth sailing. They're like the uninvited guests at a party, always showing up when least expected. But let me tell you something, without them, life would be as boring as a never-ending queue at the post office. And who wants that now? If you're an underdog, you face challenges that are more like hurdles on steroids. They're bigger, they're tougher, and they're meaner. It's like playing a game of chess where your opponent is always 2 moves ahead. But remember, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog, right? Take Albert Einstein, for instance. The man couldn't even speak until he was 4 years old. Teachers thought he wouldn't amount to much. But look at him now. He's only the most famous physicist in the world. Talk about a plot twist. Or consider Oprah Winfrey. She was told she was unfit for television news. Now she's one of the most influential women in the world, with a media empire that would make any tycoon green with envy. And then there's Elon Musk. The man was ousted as CEO from his own company. Yet, he went on to build SpaceX and Tesla, companies that are changing the world as we know it. What's the common thread here? They all faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. They all had moments when the world counted them out. But they didn't let that define them. They saw each challenge as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. So underdogs, let's embrace those uninvited guests. Let's turn those hurdles on steroids into stepping stones, because really, what are challenges? They're just opportunities in disguise. Victory doesn't happen by chance, it's a choice. And every underdog knows that. So let's talk strategy, the underdog strategy. It's not about having the biggest muscles or the fastest legs, it's about having the sharpest mind. It's about thinking differently, seeing the world from a unique angle, spotting opportunities where others see only obstacles. Take, for instance, the story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare, in all his arrogance, thought he had the race in the bag, but the tortoise, the underdog, had a strategy, slow and steady, never faltering, never straying from his path. And we all know how that ended, right? But let's bring it back to the real world. Ever heard of the Fosbury flop? It's a high jump technique invented by Dick Fosbury, an underdog who couldn't compete with the traditional methods, so he flipped the script, literally. He went over the bar backwards. People thought he was mad, but he wasn't mad, he was strategic, and he won gold at the 1968 Olympics. Or what about Susan Boyle? She walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage, a complete unknown. The audience smirked, the judges chuckled. But Susan, our underdog, had a strategy. She knew she had a voice that could silence a room, and she did. She sang, they stopped laughing, and she became an international sensation. These underdogs didn't succeed by accident. They had a plan, a strategy. They looked at their situation, their skills, their resources, and they made a choice to push, to strive, to never give up. They chose to outwit, not outmuscle. They chose brains over brawn. They chose victory. So remember, being the underdog doesn't mean you're destined to lose. It means you have the opportunity to surprise, to innovate, to change the game. It means you have the chance to rise, to overcome, to triumph. Being an underdog doesn't mean you can't strategize like a champion. The sweetest victories are those no one saw coming. That's the beauty of an underdog story. You see, when the odds are stacked against you, when no one gives you a snowball's chance in a sauna, that's when the magic happens. Let's talk about the underdogs who snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. Like the one who was told they weren't good enough, strong enough, smart enough. And yet, they stood there at the pinnacle of triumph, grinning from ear to ear, leaving onlookers in a state of disbelief. Picture this, the unassuming underdog, laughed at, ridiculed, told they'd never make it. They'd been the butt of every joke, their dreams dismissed as the ramblings of a fool. But guess what? They didn't listen. Instead, they rolled up their sleeves, put their heads down, and got to work. And when the day of reckoning came, they were ready. They stepped into the ring, onto the field, into the boardroom, and they shone. They shone so bright, you'd need sunglasses just to look at them. They defied the odds, proved the naysayers wrong, and rose to the top. And the best part, the looks on the faces of those who doubted them. Priceless, I tell you, the shock, the disbelief, the horror, as they realized that the underdog they'd written off was the one holding the trophy, the one standing in the spotlight, the one having the last laugh. That's when the underdog becomes the top dog. When they fought the good fight, stood their ground, and emerged victorious. When they've shown that it's not about how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up. So the next time someone tells you that you can't, that you won't, that you shouldn't even try, remember the underdog, remember their triumph, and then go out there and show them what you're made of, because the sweet taste of victory, my friend, is worth every bitter defeat. Who's laughing now, eh? What does an underdog leave behind? A legacy of courage and persistence. Let's take a moment to think about that, shall we? Imagine a world where every underdog just gave up at the first sign of adversity. It'd be like a football match where only one team showed up. Or like a boxing match where one boxer throws in the towel before the first bell. It'd be as exciting as watching paint dry on a rainy day. But thank heavens, underdogs have more grit than a sandpaper factory. They leave behind a legacy that is as enduring as it is inspiring. They plant seeds of hope in the barren fields of despair, and from these seeds, mighty trees of ambition grow. These trees bear the fruits of success that future generations can feast upon. Now you might be thinking, all right, enough with the metaphors. What's the real impact here? Well, my friend, the impact is as real as the nose on your face. The legacy of an underdog is not just about personal triumphs. It's about showing the world that no matter how big the odds, how high the mountain, or how deep the valley, there's always a way to rise above. And let's not forget the humor in all this. I mean, who doesn't love a good underdog story? It's like watching a penguin beat a cheetah in a foot race. It's unexpected, it's hilarious, and it's downright inspiring. So let's raise a toast to the underdogs, the ones who never back down, the ones who rise from the ashes, and the ones who turn the impossible into the possible. Their legacy is not just about winning or losing. It's about the courage to try, the persistence to keep going, and the resilience to bounce back. Remember, the world may underestimate you, but never underestimate yourself. So there you have it. The underdog isn't just a character in a story, it's a mindset, a strategy, a triumph, and a legacy. Being an underdog isn't about being the weakest, it's about using your unique position to rise above expectations. So go ahead, embrace your inner underdog and show the world what you're truly capable of.